something wrong? You ever feel like you're wrong? It's an annoying feeling, honestly. Like, no matter how much I think, it all comes back to square one of my thought process. I just try not to think. Harder than it seems, but it kind of works for me. What brought this on, though? You downer bitch. I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know how I lost it originally, but it's just gone and now I'm empty. You lazy bastard. Feels good to laugh a little. Yeah, you said it. What exactly are you looking for, though? A part of my soul, as far as I can tell. I can't find any real enjoyment in anything unless it's for a moment. So, I want that feeling back. Well, that'll be easy to find. Jeez, would have been easier to ask me for a diamond. But I feel you on that. Just take it easy. We've only been living here for a little while, so don't rush yourself. Fine, but don't piggyback on my breaks. I don't care if an event is going on in that game of yours. Focus on your own stuff. Ah, come on. I gotta finish this event up. The faster you finish your own work, the faster you can play that dumb game. Well, guess alone time like this is good for one thing. Recording another musing on writing. I want to cover a topic that I like, but the original plan was way too long, so instead I'm going to try to focus on a smaller portion of it. After all, it had some useless topics in it, like some situations that will probably never be used in writing, because they're just kind of boring. So, let's talk about the fun part of my original idea. Evil counterparts to the main character. I love this trope so much for one reason only. Epic fight scenes! What? No, because it can be used as a great exploration of character in the story. And who the hell are you? Hey, no swearing. Swearing is super bad. And I'm, nobody important. Don't question me. Huh? Ugh, you make my head hurt. I'm just not gonna ask you anything for a while. But you're partially right. However, I will always be on the side of writing, not just enjoyment. That's a dumb way to look at things. If you're gonna review something, always side on the audience, and the audience will usually love big fight scenes. Well, before you jump into that part of this topic, it's probably for the best we lay out some basic information first. When creating a scenario or story where a character meets with another version of themselves, it's good to know how exactly it will happen. Time travel is probably the easier one, but them coming from an entirely different world is another way to go about this topic. Although they sound very similar, the stories that come about from them splinter in some pretty obvious ways. Huh? How so? Isn't the future essentially another world the character's other version is from? It is, but coming from the future has its own set of traits that differ from a different world. If coming from the future, their motivation is usually to prevent something from happening that altered them in some profound way, or ensure an event happening in order to recreate their evil origin. It has a deeper character narrative woven into it, where it lays dormant or is explicit in the story itself. Coming from another world, though, is usually for reasons like domination or conquest. It's a power play to show that across every different possibility, the one invading is stronger and is imposing their will onto other versions of themselves. Both of those sound really complex and are therefore dumb. What? You little brat! You can't enjoy the finer details in a story. Yeah, 'cause those are dumb. I want to watch something that can keep my attention, not be bored with themes or subtle details. The subtle details are what make this trope and the stories using it so good, because there's a hidden layer to the character who is traveling to the universe of the plot. A sense of regret, failure, or fear. However, I think this only in cases where they are a major threat or influence. There are some stories or scenarios where the person who is traveling and encounters another version of themselves is either the hero trying to fix multiverse stuff, which isn't important for this video, or they are a jobber / second in command for the real bad, and thus their characterization is going to end up differently. Because writing a jobber is easier, I'll tackle that one first. Especially because it is just writing a minion character, which is usually defined by their connection to the main villain. You can give them a character, but they usually are pretty limited. Think of these guys in a similar light to the one-off villain. An example of an evil version of a character being just a jobber is from Cardfight Vanguard, with Reverse Leon. His purpose is literally to just fight the normal Leon to get him to give up and become reversed, which doesn't happen as Leon defeats him. He's the basic slate of what I'm describing. called in for a fight in a single episode in which he's defeated and plays no bigger role in the story. Now, because they are a jobber, they do have the potential to become something more like a Starscream or a main villain in waiting, wherein they will wait for a good opportunity to usurp the title of main villain. The turn from smaller villain to main villain has to be built up well if you want the shocking betrayal moment to hit the audience and characters hard. Of course, this means they will need good characterization and written well enough that people could understand why they did such an act. Some other smaller things you can do when writing this type of traveler is, if they are known while working under the main villain, to have the main villain, before they are betrayed, question their motives and see if they honestly could be trusted. After all, can it really be believed that this hero would turn evil? So, a couple chapters could be about this future hero proving themselves loyal to the villain. If a villain was truly evil and wanted to test loyalty, they might have the time-displaced version target their old friends. Success or failure to kill their old friends may not matter, as the follow-through of the instructions might be more important because it means they have someone who knows the ins and outs of their enemies as a loyal member, so repeated and better attempts can still be done in the future. You done yet? I'm getting bored just listening to you. Nobody's gonna write a time-traveling character as a lesser villain, because that's just not as fun as making them the head honcho. As if you would know how to write a villain at all. Hey, I can write bad guys too. You give them cool moves and abilities to rival that of the heroes, and that's fun to do. With time travel plots, it's even more fun. And why is that? Because the fights can become a bit more strategic than previous ones. Their enemy has a near-perfect understanding of their present counterpart, so the hero is at a really big disadvantage already. Secondly, because time has passed, the villain counterpart would have a much larger array of skills and ways they could make use of their powers. A fight can't carry an entire scene, though. As cool as it may be, the impact of it is what matters the most. What you're describing is purely candy for the eyes, but it'll have a bad aftertaste to it. Shut up! You're just a snob! I just want good stories, and I know you do too. That's why I love this writing trope. The stories can be really good, but it all depends on how well these time-traveling or alt-universe villains are written, and there's one thing that I want to bring to light about some of these characters. As confident as some of these types of villains are, there's one thing I've come to realize, and that is that they are motivated by a secret fear that never really gets touched on. That's impossible. They wouldn't be so confident if they were afraid. Even if they were overconfident, it still feels weird to say that they have a secret motive based in fear. Well, the reason I believe them to have this fear is honestly quite simple. It's in their motive to ensure their creation. If they are so sure that their existence is inevitable, and the hero will turn into them, why must they intervene at all in order to make them evil? It's because they're afraid that they may not actually be the true ending. There is a chance that their life and existence can be erased, so they're fighting to make sure that doesn't happen. Granted, there is also the much dumber motivation that isn't as tragic, which is just to prove that they are the better one, which also does have a hint of weakness to them, as they may not be able to recover from their pride being attacked when proven wrong, or the one where they want to get stronger by killing a stronger version of their past self, like one of the dumber Flash villains, Savitar. He was still cool, at least early on. But that sort of thing doesn't work with most of the cool evil future selves, like Dark Danny. He's pretty confident the entire time and even acknowledges that he doesn't have to beat Danny in order to make him turn into him. Rather, he just has to keep him busy until the tragedy unfolds. Except, he does show a hint of fear, or confusion, depending upon how you see it, about the future changing in the final fight when normal Danny uses the ghostly wail against him. A technique that he had only recently learned had been learned by his past self 10 years before he should theoretically have it. It's a sign that time can change. Granted, it's not a big fear, but it's enough to knock his confidence out for even a little bit. I think I see what you mean. But most of that stuff only happens in the final fight, so it doesn't seem like I'll get much mileage in a story, since then it might also weaken the villain if it's used too early. Yeah. Still a nice little thing to think about when watching the type of character be used. But I still have one more to talk about in my little arsenal of examples, and that's the ultra-tragic one where a hero goes back in time or escapes to another version of their world in order to fix something, usually the loss of a loved one. In their world, they messed up, or something went wrong, like the villain killed their girlfriend, or some giant reactor blew up and destroyed the entire city, and they want another chance to make sure that doesn't happen, even if it means altering the lives of their past self and friends worse. Ooh, I know a good example. American Dad, future cyborg Mexicanadian Stan Smith. Future cyborg Mexican... What the heck is that? It makes sense in the episode, but it's a good one, wherein he's an antagonist for Stan Smith as he screws over his current life in order to make up for his mistakes of neglecting Francine and reseducing her. Such a great episode in all honesty. But it matches what you're talking about beat for beat. The regret of him signing up to become a cyborg rather than being together with his wife in death, time travels to fix it, and he even does his best to mess up his past life's relationship in order to get ahead. Huh. That's not a bad example. But if you want a real villain, I technically have one for this as well. From Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, we have Zone, who is a character that dub watchers only barely know because he made like one appearance in one of the dubbed arcs. Zone is a guy who sort of brainwashed himself into becoming Yusei in a future timeline where giant machines were killing people, and he had to bring back hope, but ultimately he failed. In order to prevent this terrible future, he and his cohorts would send themselves back in time to stop the widespread use of a special fuel that acts like a perpetual motion machine called Energy, as well as synchro summoning because it popularized writing duels, which caused an increase in energy usage due to the vehicles used in these duels. Suffice to say, good guy from future goes into the past to prevent the terrible future of murder. But the idea for this is very similar for a normal hero to turn into a villain, just with the twist of time travel. Not hard to write, really. I feel like I need more examples, but I just can't think of it. It's frustrating. I'll move on for you. One of the other good parts about writing these villains is the character development for the characters. To have them wonder if they really could turn out like their alternate selves, go through worry and stress about trying to avoid it, and ultimately either defeating them and being able to deny that future, or give in and fall into despair. If the second, then they could still be saved by their friends as their big learning moment, or it could be used as setup for a future story with them as the villain. There's a lot to do with this, and hopefully this was helpful to some degree. Yeah, what she said. Glad even as a kid I can still put some good thoughts together. Oh, come on, just lighten up and have fun. Sure, sometimes you need to be serious, but you need to have room to be happy. That's not that easy. Of course it's easy. You just don't want it to be. As someone somewhere once said, you need a reason to be sad, but you don't always need a reason to be happy. Just cut yourself a break and enjoy a show for once. I can't believe I became someone so cynical. You know what? Fine. I'll try. I'll look for something good instead of something horrible next time. Let's see if that's enough for me to have fun. You're pretty silly. But at least I won in the end. So now I'll just become a part of you. Maybe I can bring more joy to ya. Anyways, bye, Wolfpack. What a weird girl I was. I definitely don't remember that happening in my time. I wonder how else I could have turned up like. But, until later. Thanks for being a wonderful crowd, but I got a jet. I've been Femwolf, and let's go to a beautiful tomorrow together.